So Vina asked me to give a few introductory words. Vina and I have been knowing each other since the previous millennium. That gives you an idea of her age. We have worked together, we have shared a lot of great moments. And just this morning I received an email from a student, a medical student, not a trainee, not a resident, a medical student, who was writing to me, and she was asking me if it was worth it to do obstetrics and gynecology, which is renowned to be one of the most difficult specialty for all the reasons you know, the time, the nights, the personal life that is difficult, the pains, the joys, and if such an adventure was really worth it. I wish the medical students could be with us here to see
yes, me too.
To see how we survive and enjoy, actually, really enjoy our professional life, how much it brings to our personal lives, and how much we can put some personal time, because it's a Saturday, it's our personal time, so we're taking on our personal time to continue our work, to continue sharing, to continue spending time together, and we're still enjoying it. So I wish the medical students who think, is it worth to go on such a path? I wish they could see us and see how happy we are, although we are tired, but how happy we are, and how much, I don't know about you, but would I have to do it again? I would obviously do it again with pleasure. I would change some things, but I would do it again. In France, my generation lived the big changes. The big changes are the recovery after night duty. When I was a trainee, we were not allowed to go home after night duty. So we worked 24 hours and then 12 more, and then allowed to go home. And it was weekend. We would arrive Saturday morning and go home Monday evening, you see. This was the way it was done. Now the law forbids that, and that's very good. So maybe 5 years later, I would have wished to start 5 years later and enjoy all these benefits they are enjoying to make life easier, because we have to give it to them. They don't have to suffer, and they have to enjoy the good parts. They have to work and learn, of course, but suffering is not mandatory. And I'm very happy they can have a better life, and they can be better trained. And once again, I wish they could see us and how happy we are in our job. Now, you have a few introductory words.
Yes, well, I start right away.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming. I mean, it's a big pleasure to have so really extraordinary guests. And there are some things I want to say, because sometimes you meet, even late in your life, people who then, become your friends. And certain events in your life also open your mind. So I choose this title because, of course, one of the events which was special in Berlin and for this town is that we had here two systems in one city, and exactly 30 years ago the wall opened. And I had the idea to compare the two systems, and nobody supported me, so I organized this in Berlin with different women departments, population-based, to do questionnaires. And then I also got some support from the ministry to do a big cohort study between two provinces in Germany, what the political system had done to pregnant women especially. This was for me very surprising to have the data. And you see on this slide that Roberto Romero 30 years ago came, and we hammered together to open this wall, and now he came back this year and wrote in our guest book. Nevertheless, another thing was to go to Holland and to come back to this country. And in Holland they have more or less a public health system. And of course I was a scientific refugee why I escaped. And this had to do also with hierarchy in our system. And when I came back, I had other eyes to look at what we are doing and how commercialized hospitals are driven. In the United States, I met Donald Berwick. He was the director of the Health Improvement Institute, but only during the Obama times. And he published on the triple aim. So we all have to strive, and I think this should accompany all the lectures today, not only for patient satisfaction, and we also have to care that it serves the health of the whole population and not to induce costs. Just the opposite is performed in the United States, as he has shown, well, based on waste, on corruption, also sometimes fraud, but also carelessness or thoughtlessness to do probably politically not very much guided. So he published also on this increasing waste. And this is also why I had to write about this. And luckily this year I met Nina Modi, and she, well, we met in the taxi, in fact, and that's, well, by accident we exchanged these ideas, and she also published a paper, Why the Health Systems Should Be Publicly Funded. So we are very curious to hear that. And I also found when I got older that there are gaps towards neonatology, gaps towards urogynecology, gaps towards longer life, because most of our obstetricians, they just, well, they think of malpractice, they think of earning their own life and maybe get out a healthy child, but that's it. And more the older I became, when I was more confident with all the techniques of delivery and prenatal diagnosis and science, and the more I became aware of that and felt totally ashamed, mainly when I visited a course at the SMFM about 6 years ago about the long-term consequences of all our pregnancy diseases. And this relates to cardiovascular diseases in the mother, to metabolic diseases in the mother, but also in the child, both, and to pelvic floor diseases in the mother, and mainly to mental diseases and cognitive impairment in the children. So I published with Ahmed Bashad on this, and but only in a kind of review, and I was asked by Abel Akumaran to write about resource management. And I could also use the data I had already to build into these concepts. So we see in this picture that, well, all the things we questionnared in about 2,000 women in Berlin just after the reunification, and asking questions about their life from 1950 to 1990, but then we did the same questions after the reunification up to 2015. And when we look at the concrete statistics, in fact, there was no significant difference in maternal mortality between East and West, though they spent much less money on healthcare services, but they had a better public health organization in forms of concentration of the high-risk cases. They had, even in certain periods, a lower perinatal mortality than in the West up to 1990, and then it stayed stable, of course. And the rate of birth weight below 2,500 was more or less the same, but in some periods even less in the East. And infant mortality was even less in the East. What is this? We also looked at the age of the first delivery, and increasingly after 1950, East Berlin supported younger mothers. And you see that very rapidly after the reunification, the age of the mother also in the East part got up because this support was not any longer there. And the place, I'm sorry for that, there is some mistake in the well, it doesn't fit in the system so well. The gestational length, of course, there were in the early 90s, the 50s, 1950, there were more post-term pregnancies. But the place of birth, they had no midwife delivery homes in the East, but these grew up after the reunification and causing increase of perinatal mortality. The lifestyle was more healthy in the East before 1990, and this was not any longer seen after 1990. And when we did multiple logistic regression, and we asked what made your pregnancy beautiful, or your delivery beautiful, or the first year after delivery beautiful, then more mothers before 1990 in the East experienced the first year of after delivery as beautiful and positive, because they were much more supported, because when a mother didn't show up with her child, then the social care would go to the homes. And so by correcting for the year of delivery and age and East-Western education, we could establish adjusted odd ratios for, so we could say that the year of delivery, the more advanced the time was going more advanced, the more happier pregnant women were, and the older they were, the more happier they were during pregnancy, and the more they got informed by books or supported by the family. They experienced pregnancy as beautiful, and during the delivery it was more or less the quality of the midwife and the doctors, and after the reunification, less mothers experienced, mainly in the East, the delivery as beautiful, and the level of anxiety due to all this privatization increased tremendously, mainly by the factor 5 in the East. And of course, after birth, also this positive effect in the East and in how Germany disappeared. And when we asked what made your pregnancy, delivery, or the first year thereafter stressful, then it was, of course, when in all times when the mother had a premature baby, and she had, well, anxieties towards of her own health and of her baby, so we differentiated for that. But we could also see in all groups that postpartum pregnancy is stressful up to, well, during delivery. The longer they wait, the more stress they experience. And after the reunification, this stress levels even increased. Then we had also, apart from Berlin, 2 cohorts in East and West Germany, and up to, we analyzed, this is one number, around 8,000 women, and we found that in East Germany, multiparous women, they also continued, as opposed to West German women, to work. In nulliparous women, it was more or less the same, but in multiparous, this was a big difference. And when we looked in these nearly 8,000 women for 48 items related to work and stress factors. It was just that according to their philosophy in East Germany, they continued with nights, work at nights, even when they had a child at home. This increased their risk to have a fetal growth retardation or baby with fetal growth retardation. And in the western part of Germany, it was more or less an unfriendly work environment. It was competition and no recognition at work, which did also increase the risk to have a growth retarded child. Well, we all know that growth retardation also increases other risks in the development of the children later on after adulthood. We also looked for the costs after the reunification. And you see red is east and green is west. So in the first years after reunification, the costs increased tremendously in the East because they all bought high sophisticated equipment. And you must ask yourself whether these costs really translate in better health of their patients. And when we looked at that time at the OECD health database, you can of course look at the total expenditure, and you see then the United States, this is white, are on the top, and United Kingdom is quite low, but you can also look at public expenditure on health, and then the states are quite low. And when you then look at, for instance, health outcomes in the same times, you see it does not translate necessarily this, maybe not the privately spent money, into a better perinatal mortality, the same with other parameters. Well, in this article I wrote for best clinical practice, I differentiated different levels. So you have, of course, individual interventions on the patient level, on the physician level, but to solve all these problems, we have really to go into politics, and either on the community level, also in training, I see. And this is a simplified model also correlated to obesity. All the topics we are dealing with today imply that we cannot only solve this individually, like when we do ultrasound or so, but we have to have concepts in society, and politicians and also our professional boards have to follow, and that is, I think, the most difficult part. Well, we have seen that in East Germany they destroyed symbols of former fascism or church or religion. That was not always right. But during this process that we, as a Western people, went to the East, we also destroyed very rapidly a healthcare system which had also very good sides. They had an audit for maternal mortality, which is now not any longer there. They had audit for perinatal mortality. And although they spent less money, they had nearly better outcomes, at least in perinatal medicine. So I expect from this day that we might discuss some aspects, what we can do in the future to be a little bit, to have this vision. And I'm very glad that Nina came here. Nina Modi is working in London at Imperial College, and she is there the chair of the neonatal intensive care unit, and she also will talk now on how to translate science into politics. Okay.